They laughed when you cried. They mocked when you prayed. But now, their karma clock is ticking. Spirit warriors, do you ever sit back and wonder, did they really mean to hurt me like that? Or was it just a series of unfortunate events? Let me give it to you straight, chosen ones. What you went through wasn't an accident. It was intentional, calculated, cold-blooded. And now, the very ones who threw you in the pit are watching you rise from it, and shaking. Let me take you back. There once was a young woman. We'll call her Zara. Bright-eyed, hopeful, always helping, always kind. She carried light in her soul, but the world around her, oh, it was dark, jealous, and cruel. Friends used her, family betrayed her, and lovers took her for granted. At one point she thought, is something wrong with me? But no, it wasn't her. It was the war against her spirit. Because when you carry divine energy, when you are chosen, you become a mirror. People look at you and see everything they are not. And instead of being inspired, they try to destroy you. And spirit warriors, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You've been there, the fake friends, the gaslighting, the silent treatments, the sabotage that looked like love. But here's the divine twist. God saw it all. And God kept the receipts. They didn't show you mercy. Not because you deserved it, but because they never had it in them to begin with. And now, the very pain they served you on a silver platter is being reheated and handed back to them with interest. As it says in Romans 12:19, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. So today we're diving deep. This isn't just a vent session. This is a spiritual awakening, a decoding of your suffering, a confirmation that you were never crazy, and they were never innocent. Stay with me till the end of this video, spirit warriors, because by the time we reach point 7, you'll no longer question why they did what they did. You'll stand tall, knowing that God didn't just allow it. He used it to elevate you, to expose them, and to bring balance back to the kingdom. Get ready to laugh, reflect, maybe shed a tear, but above all, prepare to rise. Let's break it down. Point 1. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a targeted attack. You ever hear someone say, oh, they probably didn't mean it like that? Nah, chosen one. Let's not sugarcoat what's obvious. They meant every word, every side eye, every sarcastic comment wrapped in a smile. Insecure spirits don't attack randomly, they strike intentionally, especially when they sense someone glowing with divine confidence. That glow you carry, that light, it exposes everything fake around you, and that makes people very uncomfortable. So instead of doing the inner work, they project their inner chaos onto you. The shade they threw, that wasn't an accident. That was spiritual warfare disguised as just a joke. The cold shoulder, oh, that wasn't just someone having a bad day. That was a calculated move to make you question your worth. See, when your presence shines too brightly, people who haven't dealt with their own shadows can't stand in your light. Your existence reminds them of everything they haven't healed, haven't achieved, and aren't willing to face. So what do? They try to dim you through gossip, exclusion, backhanded compliments, whatever it takes to feel superior, even just for a second. Psychologically, this is known as projection, a defense mechanism where people attribute their insecurities or unwanted feelings to others. And spiritually, it's a test, a divine one. Because the enemy doesn't bother with the weak, only the ones with purpose. That spiritual bullying you endured wasn't because you were weak, it was because you were chosen. You were strong enough to carry the weight of rejection, sabotage, and betrayal, and still keep walking. And here's the truth they'll never admit. They weren't confused. They were consistent. Consistent in their jealousy. Consistent in their manipulation. Consistent in trying to make you doubt your own worth. But consistency works both ways. While they were consistent in trying to break you, you were consistent in growing, in rising, in glowing even brighter. So next time someone tries to dismiss your discernment with, they probably didn't mean it, trust your spirit. Your intuition isn't paranoid, it's prophetic. You weren't imagining the shade. You were enduring the storm. But storms don't stop the sun. They pass, and the chosen one keeps shining. Let them sit with their bitterness while you bloom in your purpose. Point 2. Your spirit made them uncomfortable. Let's be real. Your light wasn't just bright, it was blinding. It wasn't loud or boastful, but it was powerful. You walked into rooms and shifted energy without trying, made people uncomfortable without saying a word. Not because you did anything wrong, but because your presence alone was a reminder of everything they were not ready to face within themselves. Your authenticity exposed their masks. Your confidence made their insecurities echo louder. That's the thing about true light. It doesn't compete with darkness, it simply reveals it. And that scared them, deeply. Because people who have built their comfort zones in darkness, filled with bitterness, denial, and self-doubt, don't know what to do when someone walks in carrying clarity. So they tried to dim you. Not with open hostility at first, but with subtle jabs, passive-aggressive jokes, manipulation masked as concern, and exclusion disguised as coincidence. These tactics weren't accidental. They were calculated moves from individuals threatened by your essence. Psychological studies have shown that when people feel insecure or inadequate, they often project those feelings onto others. Instead of confronting their own shadows, they try to shrink the person who mirrors their lack. But here's the truth. They didn't hate you. They hated the reflection you held up. You reminded them of the courage they hadn't found yet, the purpose they'd buried, and the joy they kept postponing. It's easier to attack a mirror than face the image staring back. That's why you were targeted. Not because you were wrong, but because you were right. Still, your job was never to shrink. You were never meant to fit their mold or dim to make others comfortable. That's why none of their tactics worked, not in the long run. Because light that comes from within can't be extinguished by whispers in the dark. Over time, they either had to confront their discomfort or fade into irrelevance while you continued to rise, and rise you did. With grace, with purpose, with power, because no matter how hard they tried to bury you in doubt, you bloomed anyway. Your story is living proof that darkness never wins when light refuses to dim. So don't apologize for shining. Don't flinch when the room shifts. And never let the scared whispers of the shadows keep you from being seen. Point 3. They were enjoying your pain. Now this one cuts deep, but it's real. Sometimes the most painful betrayal doesn't come from strangers. It comes from the people you let into your heart, your home, your plans. Yes, those folks you trusted, laughed with, cried with. Some of them weren't just watching you struggle. They were silently celebrating it. Every setback, every failure, every time you stumbled, they were clapping in the shadows, smiling to your face while secretly hoping you wouldn't rise. It's a hard truth, but psychology supports this. Schadenfreude, a German term, literally means taking pleasure in another's misfortune. And unfortunately, it's not rare. Studies have shown that people sometimes feel schadenfreude even toward their close friends or relatives, especially if they perceive them as competitors. These people weren't blind to your pain. No, they saw it clearly. In fact, your vulnerability made them feel stronger. It gave them a twisted sense of superiority. They weren't just indifferent. They were invested in your downfall because your light made them feel dim. But they underestimated one thing: your ability to bounce back. They didn't know your struggle was making you stronger, sharper, and more resilient. They didn't realize that while they were gossiping, you were growing. Here's the twist. The very table they set, the one where they feasted on your failure, is about to become their lesson. Because now, you're rising, you're glowing, you're becoming everything they feared you would become. And the same people who giggled at your hardship will have front-row seats to your success. Not because you want revenge, but because your elevation is part of your divine assignment. Proverbs 16:7 says, "When a man's ways please the Lord, he makes even his enemies to be at peace with him." So no, don't get petty. Don't serve revenge. Serve purpose. Rise so high that their shade can't reach you. Let them sit at that table in silence, forks in hand, unable to digest the feast of regret they prepared for someone else. You're not going back to serve bitterness. You're here to serve excellence. And the best part? You didn't have to lift a finger in revenge. God handled that. You just kept moving. So smile. You're the storm they hoped would pass. But instead, you became the thunder that shook their comfort. Point 4. The repercussions have begun. Spirit warriors, let's talk about divine justice. Spirit warriors, listen closely, because what's happening right now is not just karma. It's God in full authority. Those same mouths that once lied about you with boldness, The ones that twisted your truth into something ugly just to get a cheap laugh or social boost. They're quiet now, not because they've had a change of heart, but because they've seen something. They've seen you rise. They've seen your peace, your glow, your favor, and it's eating at them. And now, in the quiet places, those same mouths are mumbling apologies behind closed doors, praying the damage they caused doesn't come back to haunt them. And what about those who turned their backs on you when you were at your lowest, the ones who ignored your cries, dismissed your pain, or said, "That's not my problem"? Oh, they're crying now, not out of empathy, but out of desperation. Life's got them backed into a corner, and suddenly they understand what it feels like to be unheard, unsupported, unseen. But here's the twist. Heaven isn't responding to their cries the way it responded to yours. Not because God is petty, but because consequences are now in motion. This isn't about revenge. Don't even think of it that way. It's about divine order, spiritual law. You don't have to lift a finger. God is already at work behind the scenes. Relationships they depended on are breaking apart. Opportunities they bragged about are disappearing. Doors they used to walk through with pride are slamming shut. And finances? Drying up like a well in the desert. And no, it's not a coincidence. It's a consequence. It's what happens when people try to sabotage someone chosen by God. Now here's the beauty of it. You didn't need to plot, plan, or pay them back. All you did was stay true. You held your head up, even when it hurt. You didn't throw mud. You built bridges. And that's exactly why you're rising while they're unraveling. So keep walking, spirit warrior. Keep shining. Let God handle the courtroom of justice. Because while they're sitting with their regret, trying to undo what they did, you're walking in purpose, protected and propelled by something much greater. Divine timing is never late, and neither is divine justice. Point 5. Your comeback is part of their lesson. The glow up, it's more than a fresh haircut, a bank balance glow, or a new circle of influence. It's a divine transformation, a spiritual flex that speaks louder than any clapback ever could. When you've been through betrayal, heartbreak, or downright sabotage and still rise like the phoenix from ashes, you're not just evolving, you're testifying. The glow-up isn't just for you, it's a spiritual slap to those who tried to dim your light. You're healing. That's the part that hits them hardest, because when someone counts on your brokenness, your wholeness is the loudest silence they'll ever hear. Psychologically, people who project negativity often do so because of their own insecurities. According to research in social psychology, those who try to tear others down are usually threatened by potential they secretly admire. So when you heal, when you thrive, when you grow, what they hoped would destroy you becomes the very thing that strengthens you. And oh, how that eats them alive. Your peace becomes their punishment. Your joy becomes their judgment. Your elevation is their unexpected education. Let them watch, let them whisper, let them squirm. You don't even need to clap back. You are the clap back. Every step you take is a reminder that God had his hands on you the entire time. Every move forward is a spiritual billboard reading, "This one was covered." The divine protection over your life has been louder than any rumor, stronger than any betrayal, and more permanent than any temporary setback. What they failed to realize is that your delay wasn't denial. It was divine preparation. The caterpillar doesn't beg the crowd to believe it can fly. It simply disappears into transformation, and when it reemerges, it's no longer concerned with those who doubted its wings. That's your story. You disappeared, worked on yourself, healed in silence, glowed up in secret, and now the world can't look away. So, while they sit in circles replaying old versions of you, you're walking in a brand new light. Not bitter, just better. Not vengeful, just vibrant. Let that be the lesson. Because the best revenge isn't revenge at all, it's resurrection. You didn't just bounce back, you ascended. And now you're living proof that divine favor is real, unstoppable, and entirely unbothered. Point 6. You were the divine test, chosen ones. Here's something they never saw coming. You weren't just another person passing through their lives. You were a divine test, a walking, breathing assignment from heaven itself. You were sent into their world not by accident, but by design. God handpicked you to stand in front of them as a mirror of truth, love, healing, and authenticity, to see how they would respond to real light. And sadly, they failed, miserably. See, when someone carries heaven's essence, purity of heart, a spirit of peace, truth on their tongue, and healing in their presence, it should evoke reverence, not ridicule. But instead of recognizing the divine nature you carried, they mocked it, they gossiped, lied, used, and discarded what they were never worthy of in the first place. Why? Because your purity exposed their toxicity. Your presence unsettled their demons. People don't fail divine tests by accident. They fail them because they choose ego over humility, manipulation over love, and control over connection. And now, the grading scale of heaven is in full effect. This isn't karma. This is divine accountability. The same mouths that mocked you are now whispering your name in regret. The same eyes that rolled when you spoke truth are now wide open as they watch you rise. And it's not because you've gone out seeking revenge or validation. It's because your glow was never dependent on their approval. God's favor was always your covering. What they didn't know was that you were never just nice. You were anointed. Your silence was protection. Your patience was mercy. And your presence, it was a test of their own spiritual posture. Now that judgment season has arrived, don't be shocked when they start reaping what they sowed. In public, it's not your doing, it's heaven's. Because the divine doesn't stay hidden forever. Eventually, what was disguised in human form must be revealed as a chosen one. But here's the key. Don't let their downfall distract you. Don't get bitter. Get better. You're not here to throw stones. You're here to keep building. Their regrets are theirs to sit in. Your mission is to keep rising in truth, in love, and in power. Remember, chosen one, you were never just anybody. You were heaven's secret walking in human form. Point 7. Now is your time to rise and rule. This pain had a purpose. It wasn't random, and it wasn't meaningless. Every betrayal you endured, every time someone turned their back on you, every crack in your heart, that wasn't the end of you. It was the architecture of something greater. Think of betrayal as a divine blueprint, God's way of realigning your path, even when it felt like the ground was breaking beneath you. Sometimes the shaking isn't to destroy you, but to shift you. That tear you cried in silence, that wasn't weakness. It was water for the seed of resilience being planted deep within you. Now is not the time to retreat or minimize your brilliance for the comfort of others. That shrinking feeling? That's not humility, it's a sign you've outgrown the room. You weren't made to blend in. You were made to be set apart. That misunderstanding you faced repeatedly, it was never your failure to communicate. It was the world struggling to categorize what was never meant to be boxed in. Standing out often feels lonely, but it's also a mark of calling. And while you've been busy healing and rebuilding, God has been orchestrating a comeback that doesn't just replace what you lost, it multiplies it. Restoration is good, but multiplication is divine. When God steps in, you don't just recover, you rise. Not because you sought revenge, but because you stayed aligned with purpose. Meanwhile, those who wronged you, those who once gloated, manipulated, or dismissed you, have gone quiet. That silence, that's their confession. That distance, that's their shame showing. You don't need apologies to validate your worth. Their regret is their burden, not your business. So walk boldly. Own your story. Your journey, with all its scars and sacred detours, is proof that divine delay is not divine denial. Keep shining unapologetically, because your light is not a threat. It's a signal that the storm couldn't take you out. And the pain was never the end. It was the beginning of becoming. Spirit warriors, you're not crazy. You're not broken. You're chosen. And what they did to you wasn't random. It was spiritual warfare. But here's the kicker. You won. They didn't show you mercy, but you showed resilience. And now heaven is rewarding your endurance with favor. Expect elevation, expect exposure, expect justice. Leave them to their consequences. You, stay on your throne, because your story isn't ending in defeat. It's starting in destiny. Keep shining, keep praying, keep rising. Stay awake, angels. Your journey is just beginning.